Next, I want to talk about how interfaces come into play with classes. So interfaces, as we learned, we had a whole section about them, describe the types, the shape of some object. And that could be an object literal, but it can also be the shape of a class. So I could have some super simple interface. Let's say it's called colorful. And all that it says is in order to be colorful, you have to have a color, which is a string. So now I can make different classes, and I can tell TypeScript that those classes are supposed to abide by the colorful interface. They implement this interface, or multiple interfaces. As we saw earlier, we can implement multiple. But anyway, let's say I describe, or I create a class called, I don't know, what could have a color? Bike? Sure. We're really running low on our creativity today, but class bike, and I'm going to tell TypeScript it implements colorful. So I'm going to get an immediate error, and it says, okay, yep, you don't have the color property that you have to have in order to satisfy this requirement. So now I have some guidelines when I'm creating my class. This interface is going to tell me, or I'm going to follow the rules of this interface and make sure I have a color property. So that could look like this. I guess I could just say color is always red, and now I've satisfied it. Or I could do something like this, constructor, and then in here, as we discussed a couple videos ago, I can set up a little shortcut, this, what's it called, parameter properties. So public color string. And now I have a property color that's a string that is initialized to whatever value I pass in when I create a bike. So new bike, red. And then let's call that bike 1. Right? And I've satisfied the requirements of colorful. And then I could have a second class, totally different. Let's have this class be called, how about jacket? Also implements colorful. And we'll do the same thing. Oh, I misspelled implements. And we're going to get a complaint saying jacket incorrectly implements colorful. So we have to have our colorful property, right? So let's just do the same thing. Public color. I said colorful. It has to be color. The interface is colorful. And then let's also add on something like maybe the brand comes first. Public brand is a string. Okay, and I'm missing my parentheses there. There we go. I mean curly braces. And now in order to make a jacket, I'd go const jacket1 equals new jacket. I specify a brand. So I don't know, how about what clothing brands are there? Prada, fancy jacket. And then I specify a color, like most likely, if it's Prada, probably black. And now I have two instances of classes, different classes, but both of those classes follow the rules of the colorful interface. So they can do their own things. That's the whole point. They can have their own methods, their own functionality, their own different properties. The only rule right now is that they must have, both classes must have a color property that is a string. So let's make a second interface, and this time I want this interface to be a, how about printable? And it's going to say that in order to satisfy this interface, you must have a print method this time, and print returns void, nothing. So now I'm not implementing that anywhere, but let's say for jacket, I want to implement that interface as well. I can implement as many interfaces as I want. Although if I start to have a lot, you might want to refactor into an interface you make that actually combines other interfaces. It extends them. We can do that, right? We have interface inheritance. But anyway, now I have to have a print method, and it's going to complain and tell me that. So this is all simple stuff, right? Very short, single property interfaces. But this is a really common thing to do. To have some interface, let's say we had an e-commerce shop and we wanted to have or how about an animal shelter app? We want to have an adoptable interface that has 10 or 20 different properties that, cats have to have, and dogs and rabbits. But they could all be their own classes, but they all follow the rules. They implement the adoptable interface. So let's add on a print method. That's all that matters, is that it exists and it doesn't return anything. It will console.log this.color. And then, so red or blue, this.brand. And this is really irrelevant because TypeScript doesn't care. We're probably not even going to run this code. TypeScript just cares that the print method exists and it follows this type rule, this signature. It has no parameters and returns nothing. Okay, so these are simple examples, but this is super common, writing a class that implements some interface.